How you choose between using insulin pens or an insulin pump? I think it comes down to answering 4 questions. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for 29 years, and during that time, I've managed it with insulin pens, a traditional tube pump, and most recently, the Omnipod patch pump. That experience reinforced something that I believed for a long time, that there's not one best way to manage diabetes. So let's walk through those 4 questions, and I'll also show you how I answer each of those. The first question is, do you mind injections? So I don't think any of us love them, but I think there are really 2 parts to this question. If injections hurts, or if you simply dislike doing them, then changing a pod or an infusion set every few days may sound a lot more appealing than taking multiple injections every day. For example, Omnipod is changed every 3 days, most infusion sets every 2 to 3 days, and some of the extended wear infusion sets can actually last up to 7 days. There are more steps involved in changing a pod or infusion set than there are in changing a pen needle, but you'll have to decide which option feels easier and more acceptable for you. For me personally, pen injections don't bother me. They don't hurt, and I don't mind doing them, but Omnipod insertions do hurt a bit on me. Shoot. I think it hurts every time. And I found that the pod changes every 3 days were annoyingly cumbersome. So the second part of the question was, do injections create any management challenges for you? So, for example, do you forget doses? Do you forget to inject your insulin? Is it challenging to calculate how much insulin you need for meals? Well, then an insulin pump might be a really valuable resource, especially if we're talking about insulin pumps that work with a CGM, so continuous glucose monitor. Most modern pump systems can adjust insulin delivery based on your glucose readings and help correct rising blood sugars or try to prevent low blood sugars. They also include mealtime insulin dose calculators, so a bolus calculator. You just enter your carbs, or with systems like the iLet insulin pump, you announce the size of your meal, and the pump will suggest a dose. That's great, but so does my InPen. I'm currently using the Minimed Go app with my InPen and the Minimed Simplera CGM. Of course, it doesn't automatically deliver insulin like an insulin pump does, but it does have a bolus calculator, it has a missed dose alert, and it has actionable alerts that'll tell me if I need to take more insulin. And I'm just blessed with a brain that won't let me forget an insulin dose. I think I maybe have forgotten to inject my insulin a handful of times and during my whole career living with diabetes. The pen system I have just gives me enough support without needing an insulin pump. So for me, question number 1 points towards insulin pens. But your answer might be completely different depending on how you feel about injections and how much support you need with your insulin doses. The second question is, first, how comfortable are you of having something attached to you at all times? And second, how do you feel about showing off your diabetes? I know that for some, it doesn't matter at all, but for others, it's a really big deal. Because if you're wearing an insulin pump, you're wearing a device 24 hours a day. And if you're using a pump with a CGM, you're often wearing 2 devices. I like the feeling of not having something attached to me all the time, let's say the freedom of not having something attached, but I actually didn't think it would bother me that much. I was wrong. When I wore traditional tube pump a long time ago, I didn't mind the pump itself nearly as much as I minded the tubing. The tubing seemed to just be determined to get caught on everything. With Omnipod, the patch pump, I didn't have tubing to worry about, and most of the time I actually forgot I was wearing it. But every once in a while, I'd bump it on a door frame, on a chair, or get caught in clothing. And of course, when that happens, I would be very aware that I was wearing an insulin pump. Now let's move on to the second question. That's visibility and placement. And the thing is, an insulin pump is not exactly discreet. So if you're very private about your diabetes, if you don't want to show it off to the world, you might want to wear your insulin pump underneath your clothing, which means that placement also really matters. Many people wear their CGM on the back of their arm, and especially when it comes to Omnipod 5, the pump and the CGM needs to communicate, so they need to be very close together, and that can limit where you can place the pump as well. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's definitely something worth considering. For me, this question ended up being fairly minor, and it was definitely not the reason why I stopped wearing the Omnipod 5. In fact, there's a lot of things I really liked about it. It was really convenient not to have to bring my insulin pen along, and having insulin on body all the time meant that I was definitely less likely to forget to bring my insulin with me. So while I personally prefer not to wear a device, it's something I could absolutely adapt to if I found that the benefits were big enough. Which brings us to what ended up being the biggest question for me. What are you optimizing for? Are you looking for better glucose outcomes? Are you looking to reduce the mental burden of diabetes? Are you looking for better overnight management and sleep? Or maybe all of these. Depending on your answer, the right choice for you might be completely different. Let's start with glucose management, because a lot of people, myself included, start an insulin pump in order to get tighter glucose management. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what happens. Modern automated insulin delivery systems can make insulin adjustments throughout the day and night based on CGM readings, and that's something insulin injections simply can't do. But not all insulin pump systems work the same way, and not every system will work for everyone. For one, many of these systems have different blood sugar target ranges, as well as different ways to get you to that target, with Twist allowing the lowest target settings and iLet generally targeting higher glucose levels than the other systems. So the only automated insulin pump I've personally used recently is the Omnipod 5. So that's the experience I can speak to firsthand. Other systems might perform differently. For me, the Omnipod 5 gave me really good blood sugar results. Not the 110 target that was promised though. My average glucose on this system was 129 and my time in range was 88. So my challenge with this system was not that my blood sugar results were bad. They definitely weren't. My challenge was that they weren't significantly better than what I can achieve with insulin injections. So for me personally, the Omnipod 5 didn't lead to better glucose outcomes. But that's very different from saying that an insulin pump won't give anyone better outcomes. For many, they absolutely do. And the second thing to consider in this context is the mental burden of diabetes. Diabetes requires hundreds of decisions every day. Should I take insulin? How much should I take? When should I take it? Am I going high? Am I going low? And for a lot of people, using an insulin pump means that the pump can take care of a lot of those decisions for you. And systems like the iLet insulin pump take this even further. With that system, instead of having to do carb counting and enter that into your pump, you simply announce meals, so small, normal, or large meals, and the pump takes it from there. If your top priority is reducing the mental burden of diabetes, a system like that can be incredibly valuable. For me, though, I did not see a reduction in the mental burden, because between site issues, pot changes, painful pods, and overall managing the system, I still found myself thinking about diabetes just as much, or maybe even more than before. But there was one area where being on an automated system absolutely delivered, and that was during the nighttime. It allowed me to sleep. Being on an automated system meant I could sleep through the night without interruptions. The pump was just handling everything in the background, doing all the adjustments automatically. So no waking up with those sweaty, shaky lows. No waking up to alarms beeping because I needed to correct a high or low blood sugars. It just let me sleep. And that was absolutely brilliant. It also handled my dawn phenomena extremely well. It's that hormonal increase in blood sugars between 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning. And this system just handled it automatically. I didn't have to do a thing. It couldn't fully handle my feet on the floor rise though. So that's a rise once you get out of bed. So I still had to do manual corrections in the mornings. But overnight, it just handled it really, really well. And that is probably the main reason why I'm considering trying an insulin pump again. So when I think about question number 3, I don't think the answer is as simple as tighter blood sugar management. I think the real question is, what benefits are you looking for? What means the most to you? So are you looking for a system that's more automated? Are you looking to have fewer lows? You're looking for that overnight management, then an insulin pump might be a really, really good option for you. But if you're already achieving the results that you want with insulin injections, and if you value flexibility, you might find that insulin pens works just as well. And that brings us to the final question, question number 4, access and cost. And I think there are really 3 parts to this question. First, what system can you actually get your hands on? Second, what will it cost you? And third, if you have the option, which system best matches your needs? Ideally, I'd say if you prefer injections, look at a smart pen system. And if you're thinking about an insulin pump, choose the one with an algorithm that suits your needs the best. And I'll explain a little bit more about that algorithm. But unfortunately, that's not always how it works out. Insurance often decides which systems are available to you. For example, I think a Tandem or Twist system would fit my diabetes management style better, but my insurance only covers Omnipod and MiniMed. So before you start comparing features of different pump systems, maybe look into which ones you actually have access to. The second part of this question is cost. Some pumps have a fairly large upfront investment. Omnipod is unique because the pumping hardware is built into every pod and you don't always have an upfront investment. But regardless of which pump system you choose, you will have ongoing costs. You'll need insulin, you'll need a CGM, and either pods or infusion sets. If you're using injections, you'll need insulin, pen needles, and possibly a smart pen. I paid $30 a month for my supplies of Omnipod 5, but your cost might be completely different. It will very much depend on where you live and your insurance. If you're buying a tubed insulin pump, the actual pump is usually a 4-year warranty, and it's most often a larger investment. But again, it depends on your insurance. So before making a decision, just make sure that the numbers work for you. The third part of this question is choice. So let's say that you have the choice of any of the systems available. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, I think one of the main things to look at is the algorithm. So the algorithm is pretty much the brains of the system. It's what determines how it's going to manage your blood sugars. And here you have to ask yourself, well, how involved do you want to be? And if your answer is as little as possible, well, then maybe something like the iLet algorithm is best for you. Also, it's very hands-off in the sense that, I think I mentioned that before, you only have to announce your meals, you don't have to do carb counting. Another major difference between pump systems is whether the algorithm adapts to historical insulin needs over time or primarily reacts to current glucose trends. To be clear, all modern systems use CGM projections. They all look ahead. The difference is whether they also adjust their baseline settings based on your previous insulin needs. So Omnipod 5, for example, learns from your recent insulin delivery and updates its baseline with every pod change. In my experience, that probably works really, really well for people who have a fairly set routine and who has fairly similar insulin needs from day to day. The thing is, I don't. So for me, I actually suspect that a more reactive algorithm would be a better fit. This is not medical advice. Please remember that. This is just based on my own experience and my own analysis. So I'm back to, and I will stick with insulin pens for a while. Not because insulin pumps are bad or because the insulin pump technology doesn't work, but because I worked my way through those 4 questions, and ultimately, pens are just a better choice for me right now. But that's my answer. Your answer to those 4 questions might be completely different, and that's okay. The goal isn't to find the best diabetes management tool. The goal is to choose a tool that helps you manage your diabetes most effectively while also fitting the best into your life.